Bang.
All right, Izaak. So tell us about how did you get started with jiu-jitsu and where you're at the moment with it?
Firstly, thanks, boys, for having me on your show. Really appreciate it and loving what you're doing. So I started jiu-jitsu when I was like 16. When I was younger, I played heaps of sports. So I was always playing sports like throughout school. I was like getting terrible grades, but always getting an A+ in PE class. But so eventually, I was playing AFL, and I loved the aspect of tackling and that sort of like hardball gets in AFL. And then I had one mate who owned a skateboarding store and a jiu-jitsu school. And every time I'd go buy a new skateboard, he would be like, come in and try jiu-jitsu. And eventually I did. And then from my first class, I just loved it. So started when I was about 16 and then, just kept it up from there.
Sick.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, I'm just trying to do something. My bad.
And with your, so just recently you had your match on Subversion and you won. How did that go? How did you feel before the match and how did you feel when you got the win?
I thought it was gonna be a good match. People were saying that like this guy's a little bit stubborn, like doesn't like tapping out, or like is a bit hard to submit, that sort of stuff. But I started like just attacking his legs. What actually happens, like the match was meant to be an 8-minute match, and then I walked on to compete, and it said 7 minutes up on the timer. And I asked the referee, "Oh, is it not an 8-minute match?" And what had happened was my competitor asked the promotion to quickly change it just before we started the match. So no one told me that before we started. And then, so I just thought I'd work my A game, just work leg locks. Then eventually got a good break on him with only like 40 seconds left to go. It was a good thing that I played my A game and just worked that. And then after the match, the guy was complaining a little bit that I was doing leg locks and things like that. But it is a submission grappling event, so. Yeah,
look, submission grappling. At the end of the day, everyone knows what you come there to see. But where are you at now? So what are you looking to do after this? Because that's, you've had a few good wins now, like on a few different good promotions. What are you looking to do while everything's locked down?
Yeah, just because I'm like stuck in Australia back right here at the moment, I'm just looking to take any like black belt match possible. So I put a bet match out there, like on my Instagram page. I said like $1,500. Like if any black belts want to compete, I'll pay them $1,500 if they beat me. But I haven't got any takers for that yet. I've been trying to promote that a little bit just for the next version, which will be September the 13th. So I'm really trying to just like get any sort of match at the moment. Just to keep up comp experience. So the more I compete at the moment, the better. So
Have you got any names in mind?
What's that, sorry?
Have you got any names in mind?
No, anyone, any black belt. Like I want the best black belts in Australia. I think I'm like, I could compete against anyone here for sure. So for me, it's just experience for ADCC at the end of the day.
Okay. Is that your main competition goal at the moment?
Yeah, so I'll have like the ADCC trials at the end of the year. So that's why I'm just trying to compete as much as possible. Hopefully I do well in the trials. There's going to be 2 trials for the next ADCC. So hopefully I can take out one of those trials and get into like what we have is our biggest event for submission grappling.
Okay. So with that as your main focus, obviously, because we've been so with that as your main focus, what would you say? How are you approaching competition this time around with a longer term focus? People approach it differently. We spoke to Lockie, and he has a good long term approach by just staying consistent and identifying positions that he thinks are most important and sticking to those. Yeah. How are you approaching that competition and leveling up in general?
I think it's about like For me, it's about finding my right pace. Like I don't want to go too hard too early. I don't want to go like to be too complacent as well. So finding like a good rhythm throughout the whole match, and also focusing on for me wrestling, especially sit-up wrestling, wrestling from a seated position to a standing position as well. So anything that and another thing that I'm focusing on is not stopping until I score. So just keep going until I score, and that's something that
Pace.
that's something that John Danaher like drilled into us in the last ADCC camp back in New York. He just said, just keep moving until you score. So whenever I'm competing, I'm just gonna like do my best until I end up on top and just like come through with the win, hopefully.
Good. Man, pace is something that, and Josh, we know this for striking for sure, and for jiu-jitsu as well, but I feel it more in MMA. Pace is something that can really break people if you have the gas tank to employ that strategy, because you can just set a certain pace. Doesn't have to be crazy, just a certain pace, maybe like a 60%, and just maintain that with no breathers in between. People will actually look for the break in the rhythm. You know, when it's fighting, it's da, 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 and then you move and then you stop. People will look for that break, but if you don't stop at all, just keep pitter-pattering. Maybe pick it up at certain points, but no resting, just constantly staying on your bike. Eventually, people will really wilt, especially when the wrestling is involved. So, yeah, that's a good mindset to just say, okay, especially with jiu-jitsu, you can't really get damaged unless you get caught in a submission, but you can say, I'm just going to keep moving, keep, staying aggressive until I score my point.
Yeah.
Good. What about mindset? Is there anything you do with mindset in particular?
Lately, I've just been focusing on like not setting any limitations on myself, like not setting any limitations on my potential. And I guess like I know what I have to do to achieve my goals, and now it's just a matter of doing it every day. So just knowing what I think, having a plan, knowing what you have to do, and then being consistent and persistent and doing it every day. And that's what I really focus on, just getting like that 1% better every single day. And if you can do that, then I think it's like your success will be inevitable.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good way to put it. So when, like, you're a purple belt at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get to a point in your life when you were like, I can actually have a real decent crack at this and make it a profession? What was that turning point for you?
I think like early blue belt days, like when I first started jiu-jitsu, even like my first week of jiu-jitsu, I remember like the coach that didn't know me at the moment, he would put me up against like his like up and coming like green belts and up and coming blue belts, and they would think like, oh, who's this kid? Like I think that like a lot of people just think, oh, who's this guy? Like they underestimate me a lot. But then like I was doing well straight away, and then by the time I was like 17, I was teaching classes like in my academy as a blue belt, and I thought that if I could just like dedicate myself to this, and I didn't like for me my gym like in my early days was like a bit of a getaway for me. So I was always at the gym, like I didn't say it to myself, but I was always training more than anyone else. Like I didn't have like I didn't say, oh, I'm going to train more than everyone else, but I was always in the gym, just going to every session, and really, I just enjoyed it more than anything. I love it sort of thing. So it wasn't like I have to do this. It was more like I want to do it. And because of that, I think now I think I can keep it up, like keep training, keep it up, and I can, go as far as I want sort of thing.
You definitely can. Yeah, that's it. That's simply how it works.
So how did you get to a point where, so I know that you've traveled a bit and you've been in some pretty cool gyms and with some pretty cool top black belts. How did you end up getting a gig with the Danaher Death Squad?
Actually, it's a bit of a strange story. So I was just competing in the gi for my first 3 years of jiu-jitsu. So I've almost done 6 years of jiu-jitsu now. My first 3 years was just in the gi, and Craig Jones' brother, Adam Jones, was like, come over to Craig's leg lock seminar in Thailand. So me and him went over to Thailand and we did a 2-week seminar. It was a week seminar and I spent another 2 weeks in Thailand. And there was this Canadian guy who was opening up a school, Justin. He was opening up a school in Canada, and he saw some potential in me and he said, "Oh, could you come and be the coach back in Canada?" So I went home to Adelaide and I sold my car, sold all my surfboards, sold basically anything I owned, and just took like a backpack over to Canada. And I started teaching classes there, but I soon realized that the level in Canada, like in that area, wasn't that great for jiu-jitsu. So I thought, if I want to really pursue jiu-jitsu, I have to go somewhere else. And New York was only an hour plane ride away. So Craig was there during that time as well. So I just met up with Craig, and then things kind of happened from then.
I like that. Yeah. So I know at the start as well, before you started and really sort of living this journey, you did a few different like backpacking journeys, which that really interests me as well. So I seen that you went, was it through South America? You just got a van and went through there by yourself. How old were you when you did that?
Yeah. So I just finished school, and after like day one of finishing school, I got a job as a pool service mechanic. So I was a pool boy for a while. And I was like, just 7 days a week, just cleaning pools, like earning some money. And then when I saved up enough money, I wanted to do gig welds. So I went to Team Urban. I went to do a camp with Team Urban in the gi. So I was training with like Jamil Hill Taylor, Muhammad Ali, DJ Jackson, which, I was really grateful for that experience. Like awesome guys. I will have friendships with them forever. And then I did gi welds, and I actually got submitted by Jonathan Ives in like the 3rd round, I think. And then after that, me and my mate bought a van in America, and we just started traveling around America for a while, into the Grand Canyon, and we split up here and there throughout the trip, and did some hitchhiking like throughout there. Went to San Diego for a bit, and then we went to Mexico and ended up going all the way to Costa Rica, just surfing and doing a little bit of partying after a hard couple of months of training.
That sounds way better than our trip of going to, where did we go? We went to Six Flags to celebrate.
Well, I guess that trip there, if you remember Six Flags, the moment with the gummies.
That was definitely the best trip of my life, and I'm looking forward to do another trip like that. But for now, it's just like train, and eventually I'll be able to do another trip like that. But at the moment, it's just training.
Yeah. There's definitely got to have that balance for sure.
Yeah.
And when you get that, we talk a lot about in a few different episodes, when you get that flow state happening, and it could be just like a one-off session that you're in the flow. But if you find yourself in a very long, extended time period of flow state where things are working and you're improving at a decent pace, it's probably a good idea to stay in that for as long as you can.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes I feel like I lose myself, like I'm not even there anymore. I'm just like in the movement of training and in the movement of grappling.
That's really cool. When we had do you know much about striking? Or who's up there and who's not?
No. Well, I know what Sam has taught me in the past.
He's got a good jab cross.
Well, we had Callie Reese on last week, and Callie Reese is like the John Wayne Parr female version of Muay Thai in Australia.
Oh wow!
And she spoke a lot about being present when you compete. She said overall, that's probably the number one thing that's going to help you the most. So she was saying how she had a sports psychologist that would help her do some visualization going into a competition. And then she would always say that anytime that she caught herself in her own head, sort of questioning things or chatter in the head, when you're supposed to be like, you got someone in front of you that's trying to knock your head off.
Yeah.
And she's usually probably lost a round if she starts doing that, if she catches herself in that sort of mind space. But she says anytime she's in that flow where she's just reacting with perfect like answers really, And she says, anytime you catch yourself in that, like you're going to be on your A game. So the more that you can keep yourself there, the more wins you're going to have throughout your career.
Yeah, you become the process, right?
Yeah, exactly that. So have you worked with, I know that Sam likes to speak a lot about visualization and he incorporates it as well, but have you worked with like a sports psychologist or anyone professional to help you do this stuff?
I haven't, but I have talked to a lot of people about this. I've always wanted to find like a sports psychologist to work with, but I just haven't. That just hasn't like come up yet. But I do talk about it a lot, and I do think about it a lot. And like when I just competed recently, like a lot of what I was doing was like breathing exercises, and also just like sensation. So just like almost like just like feeling my body and feeling like the full sensation, like just like if you were meditating and you have like consciousness and its contents, so like going through the contents of your breath and of your sensation and controlling your thoughts as well. So a lot of what I was doing was just like keeping deep breathing and keeping aware of like my breath and everything else. And I find like that helps me.
Yeah. So you're saying like day to day you do that, or are you saying before competition you'll do that?
I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that every day for sure. Like I'll meditate first thing in the morning and before I go to sleep. And I find like that's helped me out heaps just to be a lot more mindful and also present and also focused as well.
Yeah. Do you have like just lastly, and then we'll do the old Sam. But have you done like any? Do you have like a certain ritual before you compete?
No, it always changes, but I do want one. Like I like the idea of it because I read that like I've read a lot of other athletes like Michael Phelps who do like exactly the same thing every day, and like before competition, it's just like a unnatural thing for him. So there's no nerves for him coming into a competition. It's just every other day. So I have been trying to design a few things like a stretching routine. Like I will try to incorporate a stretching routine I do every time, like every morning and then before I compete as well. Another thing that Gordon was showing me was before I compete, just to go through like 3 different positions, like maybe escaping from back control, getting your guard retention from side, like top side control, things like this. So just like going through your defenses as well before a competition, just um, to get those sharp as well. So there are a few things that I'm working on as well to try to get it, but I haven't developed it the way like I want to just yet.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing it the right way anyway. I guess no real top athlete got there on the first shot. I guess you got to trial and error until you figure out what works for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, trying like each competition, I'll try something, and if I like it, then I'll keep it.
That's something that's really good about Josh, really good about yourself. Something that all 3 of us do is that, first of all, because I guess I've had chats with both of you, and we all share that mindset. And the first thing about it is that we know we're in the journey and that we're on the way. Like, and I think understanding that helps you massively, because especially with people like ourselves that can get really ambitious, and we are ambitious and set big goals. I think it can be a double-edged sword, and one side of it is not learning how to live in the present, not learning how to really like enjoy the moment, constantly thinking about what comes next in the way of attaining what it is we've set out. But over time, I know this was a change that I've had, I guess, over the past year, and I've noticed that in a few of my mates as well. We realize that, like I said, we know we're in the process, that the journey is happening right now, and that you learn to embrace it, each moment of it. Constantly planning, the next week and the next week's training, and then thinking about our goals is good for us, and it's definitely going to help us on the way to achieving everything that I guess that we have set out. But balancing that recently with being a bit present, I guess with the whole mindfulness movement as well, has really helped to balance things out for me. And I think, talking to both of you, because all 3 of us have ambitions in everything that we do. Like anything that we step into, we're like, okay, let's see how we can take this all the way. And whether that's to do with potential or just ambition as a character trait, it really helps that we've balanced it out by always trying to be present, focus on things like breath work, meditation. Yeah. It's crazy
I think
because
continuing on the idea of being present, like something that my pop actually said to me like a long time ago is to live every day as if it was your last day, but then at the same time live for the next 10 years. So thinking longevity as well as being present, I think, because it's important to think ahead, but at the same time, just like be in the moment every single second, if it's possible.
yeah, it's a blessing. Each moment is a blessing, and you can lose sight of that if you're thinking about the next one constantly.
Well,
Yeah, that's huge, because that's you'll hear it all the time, and depending on what your goals are is usually how you're going to plan on dealing with your life. And I think that I've spoken about this before, but when I first got diagnosed with my tumor, and I was at the time I was thinking a lot of long-term goals, especially business minded. We were pretty heavy into business at the time, and most of our goals, well, my goals personally, were longevity. And I was assuming that, you know, over the next 10 years, I'll do this and I'll do that. And then you hear something like that and you're like, oh, hang on a second, maybe I don't have that long or whatever. And those thoughts start to creep in. And then, but at the same time, I never thought of the whole live each day as if it was your last. That thought never really kicked in, to be honest. It definitely made me more mindful and more present and more appreciative, for sure. But I never thought like, oh, today might be the day, today could be my last day, and try and do things like that and be overly over the top and say everyone, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that real thought pattern exists. I don't think it's a reality, really. I don't think that you can live every day as if it was your last. You can definitely incorporate some habits that are going to help you be present and things. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. But, you know, in terms of living every day if it was your last, I don't think that you can do that.
Yeah, I think what I mean, like what that means to me is just to like appreciate everything in your day. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to be seeing your friends, then you really appreciate like the communication you have with your friends, or if you're going to like see your family, like, and you say goodbye to like one of your family members, like you really mean like the words that you say to them, or like little things like that. Like you're walking through your day and you appreciate like the small things as well. Like for me, that's what that kind of like, when people say that, that's what I take out of it, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. That definitely that's a game changer right there. Because I mean, you probably got so many blessings throughout your life that you weren't even realizing until you just take a second to be like, oh, hang on, I've got things pretty good. And I think it helps you. I don't know what it is. It's just like it was always there. You always had it. But then when you start to put yourself into it and really realize that what you have, I don't know, it just sort of changes a lot.
Yeah, maybe it's a part of also like being grateful for everything. Like I know like a lot of people will just like write down at the end of the day or at the start of their day just a few things that they're grateful for. And I think that can also be a bit of a game changer, just to realize like what you do have and not always just wanting things as well.
Yeah.
Because we all want something and we can all just focus on that all day. We want this, but we can actually like stop and think, oh, what do we have and what can we be grateful for at the same time? And I think that just generally makes you happier overall.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know who said it. I don't know if it was someone that was on the podcast recently, but they were saying how if you don't start to have these habits throughout your journey, once you do reach that pinnacle of what you thought was a pinnacle, you're gonna feel lost. You're not gonna realize that what you've done. Yeah. I don't know who said it, but they were saying maybe it was my girlfriend's dad. He was saying how like he's had a really successful business journey, and he was saying that if you don't, he's like, I regret not doing this as I was growing up. It was cool. We had like a little father-son bonding sesh. I was helping him build a deck, whatever. And after it, we're having a beer and he goes, you know, if I could give you 3 pieces of life advice, and off the top of my head, I might have forgotten one, but he said, 1, make sure you create the habit of appreciating your accomplishments. He's like, if you don't start that habit from the start, once you get to the pinnacle, you're not even going to realize that you've made it and you're going to feel very empty inside. I was like, okay, that's a good one. And then he said, make sure you appreciate the women in your life, which, yeah, fair enough. And then I can't remember the last one, but if it does come to mind, I'll say it.
Those 2 there are good. Those 2 there are just golden gems on their own. Like On the topic of gratefulness, which I'm happy, one of the habits that I've employed recently being in the last few months, has just been adding to my affirmations three affirmations of gratitude. And one that's come up a few times has been gratitude for my friends and the network of people that I have, like such as yourselves. Not to blow smoke up your ass, but to have, honestly, to have mates that you can actually have these conversations with is really is a benefit to us, because we know how important content is, and whatever input is going into us is affecting us in some way, somehow. And the fact that the mates that I talk to, we chat about whatever, we have a bunch of banter, but it's constantly about something, about improvement, something about something else. And regardless of what anyone thinks, that really helps us, because we're so young and there's so much we're going to have to learn along the way. But one way of making sure we're constantly making that progress is to make sure your network, the people you communicate with, are pushing you, are helping you learn. You're learning together, you're growing together. It's important. It's important. And yeah, that's something that's crept into the gratitude list a few times. That plus another one I've said like pretty much 3-4 days in a row has been to be grateful for the journey itself and the challenges it brings, because the challenges is where, especially this year, probably being challenging for everyone in different ways, has brought heaps of growth. So on that, I would say, what do you think where do you think you've made the biggest change this year or in the past 12 months that's had the biggest impact on your life right now, to both of you?
Yeah, especially because of like the pandemic and COVID, and I went back to Adelaide for a while and there was nothing really to do there. So I ended up working a job for a while and saving up some money, and I really had to stop and refine like some of my like daily routines and really make sure that all my habits and all my decisions put me on the right trajectory and the right direction, like towards my goals. And I also got a chance to reflect and prioritize like what was important to me and what I need to do to achieve my goals as well. So I really got to prioritize my health, and I really got to do some study on health and stuff like that. And I think grow a little bit mentally and like sit down and read some books on discipline and a few other things like that. So I think that helped a lot, and a lot more meditation, which helps me spiritually, and just like also being around my family as well. So I got to build some relationships with my family, which was something that I've done in the last 12 months, sort of thing.
Valuable. What about you, Josh?
Honestly, pretty similar. I guess everyone's probably at some point gone through their whole character analysis throughout this last 12 months. I think it's very valuable to do that. But I think even just a small one for me personally that I'm starting to notice benefits is just one habit that I started probably from the first lockdown is just daily yoga. And I mean, I don't know, for some reason, it's just really helped me more than most things, I think. Like, I don't get me wrong, I'll try this and that, and I stay consistent physically, but I think it was something that I always knew that I had to do because I've got some real stiff hips. And then just lately, I'm like, you know what? Like, these things that I thought I couldn't fix, because I have a hip impingement on my left hip, and I thought that was just the thing that would stay forever. Like, I've just got that. But now I'm like, oh, hang on, you can fix things. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be that way. And now just going through this, I can feel like just for every day is easier, but I'm going to notice, especially when we go back to full-time training, and I'm going to be, I'm not going to be as injury prone. I'll be able to recover quicker. Head kick's going to be flying up there. So I think it's going to help a lot.
All right, Izaak, what would be your one thing, if you could pick like one thing that you've adopted or one change you've made so far that has had the biggest positive impact on your life?
I think learning yourself, like know yourself as best as you can. Learning to understand yourself and know your why and know your intentions behind your actions. Because like I look at like a lot of people, like just like from the outside, and you know, they're going out and they're drinking every weekend, and it's like, why are they doing that? Like, what's their intentions behind that? Like, I think if you can really like go deeper on the understanding of yourself, you can really understand yourself better, and you can then understand like your goals better and your values and your principles and everything else. So just like taking time to be by yourself and understand yourself and what you truly want, and then at the end of everything, then you can understand what you really want to do, what you're passionate about, and just do it. Just do what you love doing at the end of the day.
All right, I've got another question, but first I'll give my own answer to that question. This year, the one thing that I've adopted that's given me the biggest positive impact has to be meditation. It's been the first time I've ever committed to it, and it would be closely in line with affirmations, but I feel like I was kind of a little bit doing affirmations a little bit last year, but I definitely dove balls deep into affirmations this year. But meditation, for sure, it's just helped me. How has it helped me? Like, I'm so scattered, man. Like, constantly my head, it is such a struggle to focus on things outside of training. That's the one thing. Training, it's like easy, but to sit down and get shit done, a struggle. And then also, it can be a struggle in other ways too, just to have a mind constantly racing. But meditation has just helped me see more of my mind. That's all. And I think when I'm able to do that, the flow-on effect has been to be a little bit more thought out in my actions and more aware of how easily my attention slips, which of course is something to work on, but just being aware of it more often and being able to catch myself more often has helped me to definitely be much more focused and actually get shit done. Because Josh, you know for a fact how many things we would be chatting about, and probably for the both of us, like a million things that we know we should do, but then one barrier to doing them is looking at all of them in your head instead of just saying, this is the one, do it, on to the next. But that would be the one thing. And then overall, this year for all of us, it sounds like from your answers, has been a year where you've got to learn a lot about yourselves, and we've got to learn a lot about ourselves. I know I have learned more, which will happen every year, but I feel like I've learned a little bit more about myself. And like you said, Izaak, when you know more about yourself, you know more about your true intentions and try and like dig into every little thing and be completely honest. It's a good exercise. But second question would be, what has been the most challenging thing you've had to deal with in the last 12 months?
Oh, probably being back in Adelaide with the family. I've been traveling for so long, so it's just, a phone call here and there. But then, being in the same like neighborhood as them and catching up so often, that took some rebuilding. But apart from that, just for me, like when COVID hit, like I didn't lose any motivation just to like stop training. It was just a matter of like not being able to be in New York and actually training. So I was still doing a lot of studying, and I was still able to set myself up a really good daily routine where I'm still getting that 1% better. So I didn't find like, I guess, actually getting better at jiu-jitsu, like with my training partners, that was like the biggest challenge. But I try to make use of other things, like you said, like meditating and affirmations and setting up like a good daily routine where you're studying like what you need to be studying and doing what you need to be doing for your goals. So, but yeah, I think, having to like go back to where I grew up was, I guess that was challenging.
A little bit challenging, yeah, okay. That's good. That's where the growth is. But in the moment, I feel you. What yourself, Josh?
That's a good one. I guess like family's weird, like especially it's weird that you come from a family, and it's weird to feel so different from your family. I think I've always had that. I don't know what it is, but I don't feel like I relate to my own family in a weird way. And it is, I know what you mean. Like it's hard to be around them at times, but at the end of the day, family's family, so. But honestly, I don't think I've had a real challenge this year, to be honest. I mean, yeah, COVID's annoying and it's created a lot of annoying things, but we're all doing it, you know. So I'm grateful, to be honest. I don't think there's any real challenge yet.
Is there anything that you could pick as a challenge that you've dealt with? Or
Oh, well, I could say that, I mean, sticking on the family vibe, like my family, they broke up over Christmas. So like when I was in hospital dealing with my leg, they were going through like a little divorce, and then they moved over to Sydney. So like that's been weird. It's just me and my dad home now, and there used to be 7 of us in this house, and now it's just 2. So that took a bit of a readjusting. But I mean, I know it's a weird one, you know, because it creates a weird dynamic. But at the same time, like I think things turn out for the most part for the better, really. Because I mean, like it's a better dynamic now. I mean, they're probably better off. I know dad's better off. So I guess it's not a bad thing in a way. Like it wasn't a challenge because it's sort of worked out for the best.
a good change.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I guess if you always have that mindset to anything, really, I mean, it's a hard one because I never want to say that nothing's a challenge, nothing's hard. If you have the right mindset, you'll be okay forever. Because I know that things affect people for sure. Like I get affected by things and things happen and sometimes you're sad. But for the most part, I think that if you can find a positive alternative way to look at it, you're going to be better off, just as a general rule.
Facts. Perspective matters big time.
Yeah.
For myself, this year would be adapting to so many different changes all at once. That just brings with it so many challenges because in the change, like we talked about with the Kaylee Reese episode, having so many changes, bang, it's just such a challenge in itself because you've adapted or adjusted to a certain thing, method, lifestyle, and then it'll change. So of course, COVID as well magnified everything. But the challenges were good because at the time they were challenging, of course, but they were good. That's one of the things that I feel like I'm glad to kind of overcome or to go through just because it prepares you for whatever's next. And the journey's fucking long. We've got a long fucking journey ahead of us, but everything we do just prepares us for the next thing. Now, player 1, Izaak, I've talked to you about it before with Bobby, who's firmly against it. But if you look at yourself as a character in the game and you think, all right, and being completely honest with yourself, thinking about your background and just saying, all right, this was the background for my character. This was the scenario, blah, blah, blah. For you to go through the game this far and still be alive and to be pursuing your dream, what do you think is one character trait that has really helped you to get through everything?
I think, I think it would be like staying optimistic and always finding the silver lining in any situation. Like just like what you were saying just before, like if this is a big extreme, but like nothing is either good or bad. It's just your thinking that makes it so. So like there's always going to be shit situations and experiences, and we're always going to have problems in our life, but we just look at those problems and be like, oh, this is what we can get out of it. There's always going to be a gift in every single problem that we face. But just keep reminding yourself like why you're doing what you're doing. So I guess like writing down your goals, for example. Like if you write down your goals, you always know like why you're doing it, and then when hardship comes and that you'll be able to push through that and find the silver lining in that as well. So yeah.
Jim Rohn has a great quote where he says, setting an audacious goal is important because it pulls you through everything, like difficulties, whatever. A really ambitious goal can pull you through all of that, which is good, and that's a good thing. Now, on the spot, if you were to finish this sentence, in 2023, Izaak Michell is
ADCC world champion.
Boom.
That's
I agree. That sounds true. Man.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Man.
hopefully.
You got
Yeah,
this.
that's a good way to put it. I like how you do that. You've done that a few times. I've seen you do that with yourself as well. How you do that, like in 2020, like you've always said this for the last few years, like in 2025, Sem is this, or Sem is here, Sem is doing this. And I think that's a real powerful way to analyze yourself like that. Because like, I mean, your balls deep in affirmations, which is good, and you'll see it differently than others. But I mean, I've been seeing it. I mean, this has probably been a big movement for the last few years, but even for the last few guests that we've had on that have been top achievers throughout their career, and like they've had a career before this, before the affirmations movement was a thing, they've already had their career, right? And they've been successful. But now they'll say like, yeah, I did this all along. Like you don't get there without it. You know what I mean? Like if you didn't have the goal to be that thing and visualize that you're going to have it, then how do you get there? It's like you're trying to go somewhere without a map. And I'm like, oh yeah, true. You need the map. And I guess the map is that visualization.
Exactly. And those affirmations are just so important. Something we all know and talk about is just like the power of our own thoughts. And I won't get too deep into that because we could probably rant on that forever, but it's simply how it works. It starts with your mind. Absolutely everything. And this is no bullshit, or this is just how it is. It starts with your mind. That's it. That's the rule. If you accept that rule, you'll get a lot of benefit out of it. And there's something we put up on the podcast page. Isaac's put up before as well. We've all seen it. It says it goes from thought to word to action to habit to character to destiny. And when you hear these guys that we've spoken to and these girls, and then you hear people outside of it. I just heard Mike Tyson talking to Francis Ngannou on his podcast, and he said to him, listen, your destiny is in your mouth. It's in the words that you say. He's like, I'm telling you now, if only I could get you to believe me. He's like, your destiny is in your mouth. It's in the words that you say. And it's simply how it is. And we all understand it, and we utilize those things. It's good. And Izaak, if any closure to your goals, which I know you're gonna hit that ADCC world champion goal. In all the, well, not all, in the few people that we've spoken to, Josh, there's similarities are carried across the board with both of you. So it's, I guess, a little bit of it's good consolation to be like, all right, well, we're following the journey, the path. There's people that leave hints, you know. We'll probably leave some when we get to wherever we get to as well. So
yeah, well, the good thing is that, I mean, upon, like, as we're going through the journey, even just now, and we're putting it out there now, if that makes sense. Like, we're pretty young in our journey, obviously, and like to set these goals now and to say that, and then this is all recorded, you know what I mean? And it's going to be cool to look back on and be like, yeah, I said this was going to happen, and here we are. I mean, yeah. It's going to be a powerful thing to look back on. I think it's going to be pretty cool.
It will be. That's one of the benefits of having this recorded. It's like a live journal for us. You know, we get to, and for the people that we have on, we get to look back on it as well and be like, oh, cool, that's where my head was at that point. You probably remember kind of, you know, when you look back on something now, like in last year, you remember where your head was at the time of that situation, and it's like, it's going to be interesting. It's cool to document.
That's a good point. I think this is a really cool little segment I'd like to add in through future episodes. I guess I'd like to start now, but every guest that we have on the Player One podcast, obviously Sam and I have a strong sort of idea of them. You know what I mean? Like, if anyone's on this podcast, it's because that Sam and I think that you're a player one. You know what I mean? And a player one to us is just simply someone that recognizes their own path and starts to forge it their way. So you create a life by your own terms. And I think that's exactly what you've done. And obviously this is the first time talking to you, Izaak, but I mean, I've obviously heard a lot about you and seen a bit about your journey so far. And I guess the top reason that I was most excited to have you on is because, I mean, from such a young age, like you're our age, right? But from the very start, from what I can see and what I've heard, is that you always do things just because it's what you want to do. And that's as simple as that. If it's that you want to go and travel South America in a van and you're only 18 or 19 and you want to be the best and you go to seek out the best, I mean, that's exactly what a player one does. You just put yourself in the best position to get to where you want to be. And I mean, I respect you a lot for that. So
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
And along the way on the journey, the good thing is when you start, what we all realize, when you start kind of just doing this whole trailblazing thing, which isn't anything but you attempting to do what it is you want to do with your life. And when you go down that path, you run into other people along the way. You know, we all run into each other. And it's good. You run into these characters. It's kind of hard to I guess, kick it with people outside of that kind of pursuit, you know, because we all kind of get what we're trying to do here. We know the challenges that we're all going through, but we know the potential we have, and we're just growing through it, trying to get there. That's the main thing. That's the important thing. Yeah, it's a pleasure, boys. Pleasure. Is there anything you want to add in, either of you? Or is anything you want to shout out, Izaak? Or
no, I just want to say thank you both. And I'm really happy to see what you guys are doing, and it's really great. So yeah, thank you both for having me on Player Ones. It was great.
Yeah, pleasure, my bro.
no worries. Thank you. I guess we'll wrap it up there.
Easy done. All righty.
All right, perfect. It's good to talk to you. Thanks everybody for listening. Catch you on the next one.
Catch up.
Ciao.